I'm going to keep this straightforward because I know a lot of you are sitting on the fence about spending a good chunk of money on a compact speaker system that promises high-fidelity sound. In the next few minutes, I'll walk through what it's like to actually set the KEF LSX up in a real living room, what daily use feels like, and where the value really lives, the kind of details that help you decide if this is the right fit or if you'd be better off looking elsewhere. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the hesitation most people have with a box this small is the old size equals sound myth. You've probably heard it a dozen times. A big floor-standing cabinet will always sound richer than a bookshelf or tabletop speaker. That's partly true, but KEF has been betting on their unidirectional waveguide technology for years, and the LSX is the latest iteration. In practice, that means you get a surprisingly full-range output from a unit that will sit comfortably on a side table or shelf without demanding a dedicated speaker stand. The first thing I noticed when I pulled it out of the box was how light it feels, yet the chassis feels solid enough that it doesn't wobble when you adjust the volume. Setting it up is where a lot of the hidden trade-offs appear. The LSX ships with Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, AirPlay 2, and Chromecast built in, so connecting it to your phone or laptop is as easy as hitting pair. The real surprise comes when you try to use it as a TV speaker. The HDMI ARC port is a game-changer if you have a modern TV that supports ARC. You just plug the cable in, select ARC in your TV's audio settings, and the speakers become the default audio output. I ran a couple of streaming services and a Blu-ray disc through the ARC connection, and the dialogue stayed crisp while the music bed stayed spacious. No extra receiver needed, no tangled analog cables. The USB-C port is there for a direct line-in from a laptop or a media player, which is handy if you're still using a wired source. One practical strength that becomes obvious after a day or two is how the LSX handles multitasking. Because the system supports multiple streaming protocols at once, I could have a Spotify playlist playing in the background on the right speaker, while AirPlay 2 was feeding a podcast from my iPad to the left. The speakers stay in sync without any audible lag, which is something you often hear with cheaper dual-speaker Bluetooth setups. If you already have other KEF wireless speakers, the LSX can be added to that ecosystem, letting you expand to a surround sound configuration without buying a full AV receiver. Now, let's talk about the everyday usability that most spec sheets gloss over. The touch-sensitive control panel on the front is intuitive. A swipe up or down changes volume, a tap pauses or plays, and a short press switches input sources. It's responsive enough that you can adjust it while watching a movie without accidentally changing the track. The downside is that the touch area is fairly small, so if you have larger hands or you're wearing gloves, you might find it a bit fiddly. The companion KEF app does let you fine-tune the EQ, but it's limited to a few preset modes like cinema, music, and speech, so you won't get the deep parametric control that audiophiles sometimes crave. Speaking of audiophiles, who should actually buy the LSX? If you're a city dweller with a modest living space, someone who wants a speaker that looks as good as it sounds, and you value a clean, wireless setup that can double as a TV audio solution, this is a solid pick. The fact that it streams up to 24-bit/192 kHz means you'll notice the difference when you play high-resolution files from services like Tidal or Qobuz. The clarity is there, especially in the mid-range where vocals and acoustic instruments live. It also works well for people who are already invested in Apple or Google ecosystems because of the AirPlay 2 and Chromecast support. On the other hand, you might want to skip this if you're hunting for a bass-heavy, party-ready system. The LSX's driver layout is optimized for balanced, accurate sound rather than booming low frequencies. You can get some bass punch, but if your primary use case is deep bass EDM, or you expect the speakers to fill a large open-plan living area without a subwoofer, you'll probably feel a shortfall. Also, if you already own a high-end AV receiver with dedicated speaker cables, you might not gain enough benefit from the wireless convenience to justify the price tag. Another hidden trade-off is the power consumption. Because the speakers are always on standby to receive Wi-Fi commands, they draw a few watts even when idle. It's not enough to noticeably raise your electricity bill, but it's something to keep in mind if you're trying to build an ultra-low power media room. The LED status indicator on the front glows softly, which is aesthetically pleasing, but it can be a minor distraction in